Hi everyone, I'm Jamie. I'm the Director of Operations here at the Edinburgh Dog and Cat Home. As you said, unfortunately Robert Pearson was meant to be joining us today. He's also he's the founder of Trim and the Friends of West Pilton, and unfortunately he can't attend today. So just stuck with me today, and hopefully it'll still be a useful presentation. Scotland's history of unwanted animals can be addressed in the context of many wider social issues. Alcoholism, domestic abuse, illness, poverty and homelessness are all issues that we see regularly here at the Edinburgh Dog and Cat Home. The home plays an important role for those that are experiencing these issues and no longer able to care for their pets. Often we're the first port of call for those whose life's unravelling or indeed recovering, and often we're a safe place for a dog or cat whose accommodation's fallen through, or maybe food while their next check is soon to arrive. The team here are always trying to do their best for the pets and also for the people, and do that without any judgment. And wherever possible, we try to support the owners and keep the pets with them wherever we can. Many of you will be familiar with Edinburgh Dog and Cat Home. For those of you who aren't, we first opened our doors in 1884, so we've been a part of Edinburgh for 137 years. Our mission really is to rescue, reunite and rehome dogs and cats in Edinburgh and the Lothians. Our vision is to create a community of unwanted and mistreated animals, to give them a voice and give them a second chance for a happy and forever home. And wherever we can, to advocate for animals in suffering. In 2020, which was a strange year, and I think it's been a strange year for many of us, we looked after 420 dogs and cats. That was actually significantly down on a normal year, and I'll talk a little bit later on about the impacts of the pandemic and why our intake was so much down. We're completely self-funded. It costs around £2 million a year to continue to operate the home, which is £5,500 a day. So it's a significant cost. We're completely self-funded, so that's all done through fundraising, income generation programs, and kind donations of our supporters. Our food banks, which is one of the big things I want to talk to you today about, is completely funded and supported through the home itself and through partnerships with other charities and other groups. Our dedicated team here is very experienced, many of whom have been here for a long time, some up to over 35 years of their career, and all of them worked extremely hard during the pandemic to keep our mission going forward. And one of the key things for the home is not just to look after the animals who come to us, but also offer support to owners in the community. And our PAWS Pantry food bank is a big part of that, as is our education programme. So rather than me tell you all about the home myself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass on to our education officer, Daniel here, who's going to give you a bit of an overview.
Hello, and welcome to Edinburgh Dog and Cat Home. My name's Dan. I'm the Home's Education Officer, and today I get the privilege of taking you on a virtual tour of the home. We'll learn a bit about the history of the home, see how the rehoming process works, visit the spaces that our dogs and cats are kept, as well as the spaces outdoors that they get to enjoy throughout the day. So sit back, relax, and let's go take a look around. Let's start at the very beginning with the history of the home. We opened our doors in 1884 to help address the problem of stray dogs in the city. It's hard to imagine now, but it used to be a real problem. Originally, we were known as the Home for Lost and Starving Dogs before new facilities were built to allow us to take in cats a number of years later. At this point, we changed our name to the Home for Lost and Starving Dogs and Cats, which doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. After a couple of relocations in the new town, we made our move to Seafield Road East, which is where we remain today as Edinburgh Dog and Cat Home. Getting into the home now, we visit reception. This is where stray or unwanted animals arrive and where the rehoming process gets underway. Customers register their interest online, they visit us, are paired up with a member of the kennel or cattery team, and then they're taken to potentially meet their new best friend. Our reception area is also where people can make donations or inquire about pet services, such as our pet food bank, which we're really proud to offer. It gives those who are struggling to make ends meet access to food, toys, and equipment to help them keep their pet in a loving home. We're headed now towards the cattery. This is where our cats sleep, eat, play, climb, scratch, and enjoy top-notch care from our team. On the left are our kennels. They have an indoor space which gives our dogs privacy from other dogs, underfloor heating, a comfy bed, and we also have kennel speakers to play them calming music through the day. This is our mascot, Hamish. They have an outdoor space too, where we can pop them while we clean and freshen up their inside kennel. And our team are kept busy all day, moving dogs from the kennel to the outdoor space, up to the exercise paddocks for a good run around, which is where we're headed now. But you can't not say hello to the cat first. Here we can see the exercise paddocks. We have 3 grassy paddocks, including our largest play area, which is where we sometimes hold events too. We also have 4 new paddocks. 2 of these, and our largest paddock, are all available for private hire by anyone needing a safe and secure space to exercise their own dog. We call them our paddocks by the throng. For us, the paddocks are great for allowing our dogs to run, jump, chase, play, and enjoy that crucial one-on-one time with our amazing team. And let's not forget about what's on our doorstep. Many of our residents enjoy walks along the Portobello Promenade, a stroll along the sand, or when the weather's just right, even a dip in the water.
I do hope you've enjoyed taking a look around and learning a little bit more about Edinburgh Dog and Cat Home today. But if at any point in the future you'd like to learn more, have any questions, or would like to support us, be sure to visit edch.org.uk.
Fantastic. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight and a bit of a background into the Edinburgh Dog and Cat Home here. So I just want to start with a poll just to see, who we've got in the room with us today. I think we're just going to get a poll up just now. It should appear on your screen, just asking, are you a pet owner? And that should be coming up just now. So just use the poll function there just to answer, do you personally own a pet at the moment? The PDSA estimated in 2020 that 51% of adults in the UK are pet owners. And just after we do this poll, I'll talk you through the impact of the pandemic as that's grown significantly. And there's various predictions about what that will mean in the future. So 71% pet owners, that's a huge amount. That just shows that you guys are above the UK average, which is maybe why you tuned in today as well. So demand for pets has actually significantly increased during the pandemic. Demand for puppies sale rose by 104% in May 2020 compared to the year before. What that meant was for every puppy available for sale in May 2020, there were 420 prospective buyers. So the demand for animals has increased significantly. It's estimated that there's a total of 3.2 million households in the UK have acquired a pet during the start of the pandemic. And that estimates now that there's 17 million pet owning homes in the UK. Some of the pet foods, so some of you are pet owners, so you may be aware of this yourself. There's been pet food shortages of certain pet foods in mainstream retailers, and that's just due to the significant increase of pet food and pets that need them. Many rescue centres have actually reported a huge increase in rehoming applications, so we're the same. Some of them have reported from between 86 and 402% increase in applications. And that again just reiterates the huge demand for pets at the moment as people's circumstances have changed. The worrying thing, however, might be that some people are taking on pets at the moment due to their current circumstances. It might be that they're working from home, which is obviously a big change for many of us. It might be that they are on furlough at the moment or something else, but it means that they've taken on a pet without realising when they go back to normality or their situations change, they may no longer be able to provide for that pet. 5% of those who bought during the pandemic have already given up their pet, and it's expected that there might be an increase on that as well. The good news is obviously for rehoming centres such as ourselves, demand is even higher, so it's even easier for us to help find new homes for our dogs and cats. Obviously, the concern on the other side of that is that we could see a significant wave of dogs and cats coming to us. Before we move on and I talk about our PAWS Pantry and the work we do in the community, I just kind of wanted to reiterate the importance of pet ownership and why we want to work so hard to keep pets in loving homes. So pets are really good for your mental health and well-being. 74% of those who rehomed an animal during the pandemic said that it helped their well-being during lockdown. 71% of you have pets, so I'm sure you can believe that as well. They obviously provide companionship and friendship as well as the obvious physical health and exercise. So obviously walking your dog, but also it's proven by various studies that even being close to your pet can lower your blood pressure and also help with things like stress. Pets can also help with loneliness. I know a lot of the time we'll see people rehoming who do live in their own, and a pet can obviously provide that companionship, friendship, but also help tackle loneliness for them as well. And pets are really important in childhood development, and that's another reason, you know, we want to keep loving pets in loving homes, because it teaches kids about caring for others, it teaches them about empathy, helps build their confidence. So it's a really important thing sometimes for children in their development. I briefly wanted to touch on the 5 freedoms, and these are the international standards of care and animal welfare. If you work in the industry, you'll be aware of these already. So these are the freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom from thermal or physical discomfort, freedom from pain, injury and disease, freedom from fear and distress, and freedom to indulge in normal behaviours. So you can see there's a lot of different things that we feel are key to animal welfare, and you can imagine with change of circumstances or with no longer having time, energy, or having the income to be able to provide for an animal, that some of these might no longer be possible. There's a lot of considerations when you first take on a dog, cat, or any pet altogether. Some of these considerations again relate to the time, energy and cost that's involved in looking after a pet, and these are the issues that we often see people struggle with and that we're trying to support them to do. So first of all, there's nutrition and diet, which is pretty obvious, and obviously our PAWS Pantry really tries to help not only provide food, but provide good quality food, and our education programme also helps educate in all of these areas, but also particularly in giving people the right information about nutrition and diet. Exercise and enrichment. Obviously dogs need to be walked and exercised, that's really important, but enrichment is often one that's overlooked. So enrichment covers things for like playing with your cat, you know, giving them that cognitive development, playing with your dogs as well, and that's actually extremely important to their development, particularly in the early years. Vet care and regular treatments. Obviously ensuring that you keep your pet healthy is really important, and a core facet of that is veterinary care. Often dogs and cats will come to us and they've never seen a vet, which often leads on to other problems, of course, and regular treatments, even things like fleas and worming treatments, often don't happen. Pet insurance obviously links into the veterinary care and covering the costs of having a dog or cat, or indeed any pet. Grooming, again, it's one that perhaps is overlooked, but particularly for dogs, it's a challenge that we see when animals come to us. And behaviour and training, and this is one that, particularly with cost, is even harder for people who are encountering poor behaviours and don't understand where to get advice, where to get support, where to look for training, and often leads to dogs coming or cats coming to us. So I'm just going to go to another poll here. What do you think is the most common reason dogs and cats are handed into the home here? So you've got 4 options here. You've got change of circumstances, being found stray or abandoned, behavioural issues, or ill health, or passing away. Just give you a moment to fill that in just now. Be interesting to see what people think. Okay, there we go. That's really interesting. So the highest rate that we had there is 58% believe behavioural issues, 42% change of circumstances, but no votes for stray and abandoned, and no votes for ill health and passing away, which is really interesting. So why do animals come to the home here? You'll be shocked by the poll you've just shown me to hear that actually stray and abandoned is the most common reason that dogs and cats come to us. In 2020, 44% of our dogs, 47% of our cats came to us either stray and abandoned. And that can be from members of the public bringing them to us, or the police often bring dogs and cats to us as well. Luckily, we do check for microchips. We also work with a number of different groups to try and find their owners initially. And we do manage to reunite a lot of dogs and cats who come to us. And that's about 37% of them were reunited last year. But sadly, that is the most common reason that animals come to us. Another big one, so the one that you guys voted for there as well, is change of circumstances. So this can cover anything, from a breakdown in a relationship to moving house, to a new job, or indeed losing your job. And this is a big one, along with stray and abandoned, that links into poverty and crucially into where our education programme and our PAWS Pantry can really help people and hopefully mean these loving pets can stay in loving homes. We do encounter behavioural issues. These are reasons that animals come to us. It's actually increased significantly during the pandemic. We've actually found, I think, 14% of more people, have said behavioural issues are the reason they're coming to us. And I'll touch a little bit more on that a little bit later on. We do still see people who have got ill health, or sadly, if a member of the family's passed away. Sometimes people just don't have enough time, and that links into a change of circumstances. And sometimes we even have dogs and cats born on site. So I just wanted to touch on some of the animal welfare issues that we see when dogs and cats come into us. First and foremost, which I'm sure many of you would expect, health can be a big concern, and that links into the considerations we talked about earlier, and not being able to provide for those, and ultimately situations deteriorating to the point where people can no longer care for the animals that they have. We often see poor dental hygiene, and that's a common one. Issue with dirty ears, with masses that haven't been investigated, and things like worms, which are just down to not being able to provide the 5 freedoms and not being able to provide those considerations, maybe due to time, energy, or cost. Many people will think that dogs and cats will just come to us underweight. That's not the full picture. We do see dogs and cats coming to us who are underweight, particularly if they have been stray or abandoned for a period of time. We also actually see a lot of dogs and cats coming to us who are overweight. And often that's because lack of knowledge around nutrition, lack of exercise perhaps, and also not feeding the right foods. Grooming, again, seems like one that maybe we get not thought of particularly a lot of the time, but actually being unkept, particularly with dogs, we find dogs with lots of matted hair, with fleas and these kind of things. We mentioned earlier behaviour, and you guys, all voted on that and thought that might be one of the big ones. And it's interesting to see the perception, of rescue animals. We do see behavioural issues, as I mentioned earlier. It's not as prominent a reason as others, but we do see behavioural issues such as guarding of toys and foods, separation anxiety, which has become more common and prevalent during lockdown, as many of us are staying at home, spending more time with our dogs and cats. We do find dog reactive, and we do find commonly manners where dogs haven't been socialised. Occasionally we do see aggression, but that's a bit of a misconception. It's not as common as people would think. Often it's personal circumstances rather than the circumstances of the dog or cat that lead them to come to us. I mentioned just a moment ago, we also find that a lot of dogs particularly aren't socialised. And that leads to a lot of these behavioural issues, and particularly when they're young, the first sort of year of their life, if they're not socialised with other people and with other dogs, it can cause all kinds of problems later on. So on to our PAWS Pantry Food Bank. We launched our PAWS Pantry Food Bank in 2019, October 2019. We had no idea it was just round the corner with the 2020 pandemic and everything we're still kind of dealing with. We launched it really because we often hear heartbreaking stories of people having to choose between feeding themselves and feeding their pets. And we wanted to take action to try and support our owners, which is a big factor of what we do here, and also try and keep loving pets in loving homes. We offered out wet and dry food for both dogs and cats, as well as offering jackets, collars, bowls and bedding out to the general public. Initially, we did that from our home here at Seafield. And for any of you who are familiar with Edinburgh, we're right on the coast here, just along from Portobello. It's a fantastic location, as Daniel explained in the video earlier, for our dogs. Lots of opportunities for lots of different environments for their socialisation. For people who are maybe struggling a little bit, it isn't the easiest place to get to. There's not a great bus service. If you don't drive, it can be a bit of a challenge to get here. So initially we were offering it from the home, but we've expanded that more recently. So just looking at early 2020, we launched our pet food bank in October 2019. By May, the demand of 2020 had gone up by 140%. Obviously, a lot of that was linked into the pandemic, but I think we also got a bit of a shock at actually how many people were in need and how many people we could support. We also dropped packages to Street Soccer Scotland and to Broomhouse Hub, who were two of the first groups that we worked with, as we'd initially been working just directly with individuals. And then we realised there was a huge demand and a wider demand, and as I mentioned earlier, the challenge of reaching more people and those who didn't have access to our site here was one we wanted to tackle. So we devised a strategy to reach pet owners who are most in need. And the way we did that is we reached out to first of all to local charities in the area, and then a little bit later on we reached out to Serenians in October 2020, who were very helpful indeed and helped us reach out to numerous food banks across South East Scotland. We realised we were onto a winner when 19 groups replied to us in just one day. We now work with 38 groups across the southeast of Scotland. You can see it there on this Google map, which I've crudely put in here just to demonstrate. We literally work across the whole southeast of Scotland, as far north as Stirling and Falkirk, out to Broxburn and Livingston, all the way down into the borders, and all the way across to Eyemouth. And that's expanding all the time. Each of these groups that are on the map here, they can be anything from a human food bank to another charity, or indeed a local pantry or a local community group. And we work with all kinds of different, size of organisations. Some of them, this is their core asset and this is what they do. Others are completely volunteer-led and are community groups. We're also using our own website to market to people so that they can find their local food banks. So we've been using posters and flyers and things in these local areas, in shops and stuff like that, so that people can go online to our website, we refer them there, and then they can see where these local food banks are so that they can access the food that we have. We couldn't have done any of this without our team of volunteers. So our volunteer coordinator, Lisa, who's currently on maternity leave, was a big facet in kicking this off, and particularly in October 2020 when we started reaching out to other food banks. Kirsten from our kennel team is currently leading on that project and has been working with a team of volunteer drivers. So we've got Colin here, who's down in East Lothian, I think, doing a delivery with one of our vans in this photograph here. And they've been working tirelessly while following the social distancing and government guidelines to distribute food across the whole of the southeast of Scotland. And all we've really asked, just before I come onto the graphs, all we've really asked back in return is just the numbers of people that are being helped and the number of pets that have been helped. And I'll come on to the importance of that. It's not just to show the success of the programme. We've got some long-term ambitions for supporting people even further than we already are. And those statistics and the location of the need for the pet food bank will be really helped by having that information. So this graph here shows the individuals supported directly by our food bank. So this is people who have come down to our home in Seafield and have picked up a food package or leads, bedding, or anything along those lines. So it started off quite quickly. We did have a strange dip in June 2020. I think this was mainly due to lockdown easing, and it might be that there was greater access at that point to further support. But we generally are helping between 10 and 18 people who literally come physically down on site and get help, whether that be food or other items for their pets. This graph here just shows the success of the pets we've helped each month through our food bank partnership. So this is the pets that we've helped through the other human food banks or other charities that we've been able to provide pet food to. So we started that in October 2020 and were blown away by the 19 food banks who got back to us immediately. And within that month helped 100 pets. And then when that jumped in November 2020 to 261, we realised that there really was a huge demand out there. And that's steadily grown, as you can see by that graph, month by month. Part of that is, I think, word of mouth, people knowing that these food banks or these local food pantries have food available, and people getting used to using them. The other big part of that is we've actually been reaching out to more and more different groups, particularly identifying areas we weren't working in before so that we can try and reach into those communities. And last month alone, there was 873 pets helped, which is just enormous. And we're seeing that steadily continue to increase. Just moving on from our PAWS pantry, and I'll come back to our longer term plans of that. I think you can see from what I mentioned about animal welfare, about the challenges and things we see when animals come to us, that rescue centres and rehoming centres like ourselves play a crucial role in society in helping people perhaps at their lowest possible moments. And that's not just through, you know, taking on their pets and rehoming those pets and looking after them. It's also trying to keep their pets in their loving home and keeping a really important family pet and loved pet there. And we've talked about all of the benefits that animals have and the importance of that. The impact of the pandemic has been quite key actually to the need for this actually. The figures I put on here are from ADCH, which is the Association of Dog, Cat and Cat Homes. And this was looked just in the middle of the pandemic in 2020. They surveyed all their members and asked what they think the impact of the pandemic would be. 72% said spend cutbacks, which isn't a surprise. 64% predicted they'd expect closures of centres, which is quite scary when you think of the importance of them in society. 59% predicted staff cuts, and 56% predicted higher return of the animals they'd rehomed. On the right there, you've got a graph that just looks at the long-term impact of COVID on the sector. And I think it was 42% suggested that they thought 8 to 10 out of 10 would be the considerable impact that this pandemic would have on the longer term. So it's obviously been really significant to the sector and a really important sector in society. But what about the impact of the pandemic on the Edinburgh Dog and Cat Home? I mentioned earlier our intake numbers were actually down. We were 35% down on the dogs and cats that came to us last year. That works out at 41% down on our dogs and 18% down on the number of cats coming to us. There could be a number of reasons for that. We can only speculate, but we believe that just due to people being at home, it might be that these issues, you know, they don't need to give up dogs and cats at the moment, but that might come later on. And hopefully it's also a reflection that we've managed to help people keep those animals in a loving home. As I mentioned earlier, there's actually been, of the animals that have come to us, a significant increase in behaviour being referenced as the reason that they're giving up their dog or cat. And this could relate to things like separation anxiety, because someone's been working from home or been on furlough for a long period of time, is now going back to normal life and getting out of the house a lot more, and that animal's then dealing with those situations. And that can be a real challenge, particularly for younger animals as well. There's a prediction within the industry that we're all waiting on COVID puppies, as the catchphrase has become, and a wave of those to come into centres like ourselves. So far, we haven't seen that. We have seen a few dogs and cats coming to us that are quite young, but we haven't seen a wave of COVID puppies. And I think once people's lives do go back to normality and furlough ends, it's quite possible that a lot of those huge number of new owners will struggle with the balance and being able to provide for the dogs and cats that they've taken on. As I mentioned earlier, there's been a huge increase in the demand for our food bank, and that's been something we've been able to keep up with. We've got ambitions to continue to expand that, and I'll come on to our plans to expand our food bank a little bit later on. We've been able to kind of cater to that huge increase, which is, as you saw from the graphs, increased really quickly, mainly through donations from our supporters, but also through partnerships with the Cat Clinic in Edinburgh and also Amazon's charity department as well. The impact on the pandemic for the home has been severe, to be honest. At one point, we estimated that we may lose 650,000, which is huge, as you can imagine, for a home of our size. Just due to the hard work and creativity of our fundraising team, as well as the generosity of our supporters, we managed to, find other creative ways of generating income and luckily secure the future of the home. But it has had a significant impact on the home here. We also had to come about with creative and new ways of generating income. One example of that was mentioned in the video is we now rent out our paddocks, and that's been immensely popular with dog walkers around the area. And is another way we're looking to generate income. We're also very soon going to be launching our canine physio service. So one of our team is a fully qualified canine physiotherapist. And these are just a couple of the ways we're looking to generate income for the home in ways we haven't done before. And I think the pandemic has pushed us to do that maybe a little sooner than we maybe would have before. These are also services which could be two-sided. So we could look at, we obviously use them to generate income, but we can also look at how they can help people in the community who might not be able to afford the service but might benefit from it. We also had to change the way we operate. So it might be some of you aren't aware of the home, it might be some of you are even rehome from us, but if you've ever been here before, you know it's a really busy place. We have people coming and going all the time, and we literally had a drop-in service if you wanted to rehome from us. So you could literally come, knock on the door and say you wanted to rehome a dog or cat, and we would take you around. Obviously with COVID, that's no longer possible. So we've had to change the way we operate. We've now moved all our rehoming online. So people will apply through our website, then we'll phone them back and have that initial meeting over the phone. And only at that point would they come on site. And at the moment, we have a completely hands-free and outdoor system to ensure we're following social distancing guidelines. Not only has that been something we've just had to do during the pandemic, it's actually really improved the way we do things, and actually our success rate with rehoming is significantly up because people are maybe a little bit more serious about rehoming, but we can also be very specific about what we're looking for. Unfortunately, we had to also look at a few changes with the way we did, and that meant closure of some of our retail outlets. And also a restructure of some of our team here and the closure of our boarding. And that was just to ensure the long-term future of the home here so we can continue to rescue, reunite and rehome dogs and cats in Edinburgh. So what's next for the PAWS Pantry? It's obviously been a crazy 18 months or so since we first started our PAWS Pantry. It's taken off in a way we could never have imagined. And we're now looking at what are the next steps and where do we feel we can continue to support people and pet owners in the society. We want to continue to do that through new and existing partnerships. So we're currently looking at areas where we don't have other human food banks, where we don't have local pantries, and trying to find local groups like that who could do with our help, and then looking at how we can do that. We're also seeking grant funding to support the project. So that's things as little as storage space on site, which we had our own food bank on site, which is now absolutely packed full, as you can imagine, with the number of pets and the demand we have. So we're looking to adjust that. We're also looking at transport needs. We've obviously got our own vans, but there's a lot of demand for them now, and other things like that. So we're just seeking grant funding at the moment to expand this project. We also want to establish partnerships with to resource the growth of our project. So I mentioned earlier we work with the cat clinic, we've worked with Amazon, and we get very kind donations to our PAWS Pantry food bank. As we grow, we're going to need more and more food and bedding and things like that to be able to provide to those in need. So we're looking to establish further partnerships to continue to do that. We also want to utilise the contacts that we now have in the community and those that are in need to expand our education programme. So I mentioned earlier, and you met Daniel in the video, he's our education officer. As well as obviously providing food and subsistence, we want to help people and educate people and give them the skills to, look at the other freedoms that we talked about, look at the other considerations we talked about around pet ownership and help them do that. So we're now mapping out, using all of the information I showed earlier and the Google map I showed earlier, where the demand is, where the need is. And hopefully as things open up with the pandemic, we'll be able to go into these locations and maybe deliver educational programs, not just to current pet owners, but to prospective pet owners as well, so that they're aware of what the considerations are and we can support people to make the right decisions. We also want to use the data that we've got, and that was the crucial reason to get the numbers from our food bank partners, to map out where the needs are, and also to identify where we don't have local food bank partners or local pantries, and where perhaps we could organise our own pop-up food banks. So it might be that Colin, as you saw earlier, goes along with the van and he stays there one afternoon a week and people have signed up and then they can access the food bank. And the importance of that is it doesn't mean that people need to come to Seafield, here to the home, and it doesn't mean if there's not a food bank in their area that they can access our portable food bank. And that way we can reach many more people. So as I said earlier, unfortunately Robert couldn't join us, so you've been stuck with me, and unfortunately this has been a little bit shorter, but I just at the last minute stuck these together because I think it'd be nice to hear what the feedback has been from some of the partners we've worked with. So there's a couple of quotes on there as well, which you can read at your leisure. I'm going to take questions just in a second, but I think one of the really crucial things, and one of the things we've noticed, and many of our food bank partners have noticed, Robert has mentioned a few times, is that having pet food actually has been an enabler for more people to access human food from the food banks, because it's an excuse to come in and use it. They need to come and get pet food for their pet, but they'll also pick up some food for themselves. And I think that's something we didn't even foresee when we first started, and has been an additional benefit through that. So thank you very much all of you for attending. Thank you for your time. Thank you to One Kind for hosting me today. And yeah, I'd be happy to take any questions that anyone has as well.